but that's okay.
My favorite, I have two, peonies and sunflowers.
I love sunflowers too.
I love sunflowers. So I was really excited about this kit. So it's a grow sunflower kit. And what I thought was really interesting about it is you can do this in small spaces. You can see this is a recycled egg carton. Yeah, and everything is extremely easy. I'm gonna get one of these and do this with my 5-year-old daughter who is
these are the seed packets?
Gardening. Yes. And you can see there's like different varieties. So it gives you like banana sunflower, yellow one, and you can really learn how to.
So just put it in the egg carton, follow the instructions.
Follow the instructions. It could not be simpler. And you know, we lived in New York City for
sunflowers.
They do get
like
big, but
this.
that's when you'll move them. You will then replant. But when we lived in the city, I was always like, we can't do any kind of gardening, and I missed that window with my older kids. But this would have been perfect because you can actually do some of this in a smaller space.
Okay, but I think the sunflower might be a little too big for my space, but I know they have other options.
Okay, this I'm obsessed with. This is really fun.
What is it?
It's a little pollination palace.
You're gonna have to explain.
Okay, so for those of us who don't garden, like me, I'm just getting into it. I'm a new gardener.
Okay.
So I have a light green thumb, but I'm hoping to have a bright green thumb by the end of the year. What this does is, when you have pollinators like butterflies, like bees, it's a sign of a healthy garden. And it also helps grow your garden because they're taking the pollen and they're transferring. It's great for your flowers and vegetables. And the pollination palace gives the butterflies a place to congregate, a place, like it's decorative, of course.
It's a butterfly bee hangout?
It basically is a hangout. And they're hanging out in your garden.
How cool are you that they're all hanging out in your garden?
We found this at Williams-Sonoma, Design in America. We just thought they were so cute and so fun. And who doesn't want to attract butterflies to their garden? And these are specifically, it's a pollination palace for our butterfly friends.
All right, Lori Bergamoto, thanks for that.
Thank you.
And to shop these products and more of the right stuff, scan that QR code bottom left corner of your screen. And for your weekly roundup of the best lifestyle content from Lori and GMA, catch GMA Life weekends right here on ABC News Live and streaming on Hulu. I'm Diane Macedo. The news never stops. Neither do we. We have a lot more news right after this.
Stories 2020, Friday nights at 9.
Hi, Hi, I'm Diana Sato. Let's get right to breaking news. Former Attorney General Pam Bondi is defending the Justice Department's release of the Epstein files under her leadership. Bondi arrived on Capitol Hill earlier today to be interviewed by the House Oversight Committee. In her opening statement, she says the department produced everything required under the Epstein Files Transparency Act. Now, lawmakers want to know why some documents still haven't been released and why portions and others are redacted. Washington Bureau Managing Editor Catherine Falders has the latest on that interview. Hi, Catherine. So what stands out to you from Bondi's opening statement?
Yeah, so of course this interview is taking place behind closed doors, so we can't see any of this on camera, and she's not under subpoena any longer as she initially was. Of course, she was let go from her role as Attorney General from the Justice Department, and then the Republican committee scaled that back, said that she didn't really need to be under oath, but she still had to come in and answer questions. I think it will be interesting to see what she says exactly to what you're saying there about all the redactions that were in the files and really the transparency about the way in which these files were released. Now, of course, she says that they complied with the Epstein Transparency Act, but the question is, did they fully comply? Were there over-redactions in lots of ways? Obviously, that has been a criticism of these documents. And then does she say, what stood out to me in her opening statement is saying that she didn't oversee it, that it was delegated to Deputy Attorney General at the time, Todd Blanche, who, of course, had a team of reviewers, but at the end of the day, she oversaw the Justice Department. She was the Attorney General, so how does she answer questions about her role, her oversight in that, and frankly, why the process, some would say, was a mess since the start. When they originally said they were going to release the documents, then they said that they weren't going to, which was almost a year ago at this point, then they reversed course. Congress passed the act, and now they've produced these documents. But again, the core of her testimony here behind closed doors will really be about the transparency of the Justice Department and really the way in which the system in which they release these documents.
And Catherine, a judge is temporarily blocking payouts from President Trump's anti-weaponization settlement fund. What more are you hearing about that?
Yeah, so the judge says that there can be no payments and that anything that's happening behind the scenes in terms of the creation of this fund, the commission that oversees the fund, is temporarily halted. Now, that's significant because anything that's happening behind the scenes in terms of this commission that will oversee the fund, that means that cannot go forward, according to the judge. Does the Department of Justice appeal this ruling? We'll have to see what they do there. But the reality is that anything that was happening in terms of the commission and getting this fund up and running is, at least for now, halted. So no payments can go out and it can't really be created, if you will.
All right, Catherine Falders, thank you. Meanwhile, as former Attorney General Bondi testifies about the Epstein files, survivors of Jeffrey Epstein's abuse are demanding accountability. Let's bring in Epstein survivor Danielle Bensky for more on that. Danny, thanks for coming on. I know this is a difficult topic. We appreciate your time today.
Thank you for having me.
So earlier, you and other survivors tried to confront Bondi as she arrived on the Hill. What happened there, and what did you want to say to her?
I mean, we have always just wanted some baseline humanity from Pam Bondi. We wanted her to turn around and see our faces. She had 3 opportunities at the last hearing, and she didn't take a single one. So it just felt really important to remind her that we are real people. You know, she has worked with survivors in the past, so I hope that she understands the depth of our pain and the depth of our fight. And so, yes, we did try to sort of like push our way through just to catch her eye for a moment. And, you know, she didn't acknowledge us whatsoever, just kept walking.
Survivors have criticized the Justice Department's release of improperly redacted files. Those files exposed some survivors' identities. It also concealed other information. What are you hoping lawmakers ask Bondi about that?
Yeah, I think we have 3 different things that we really need to focus on here. And one is the release of all of the files and how these files were released after, you know, there was a deadline. We were told that there would be this slow rollout because they were protecting victims. My lawyer with another lawyer compiled a list of 350 names that the DOJ was given initially, and there were names to watch out for. And of course, they were not watched out for. In fact, there were 3 rollouts containing all of our information. And so the release and how the release happened is one issue, and then the redactions are its own separate issue, I think. We saw time and time again perpetrators be protected and victims just be exposed to the point where nude photos have been exposed of victims. So basically, our government is providing porn, like out there in the world. So there needs to be some accountability for that. And then there's a third bucket that is investigations. We need to see investigative lead, or we already have investigated leads, and we need to see the investigations start.
Now, in her opening statement, Bondi says, to the best of her knowledge, the department produced everything required under the Epstein Files Transparency Act. She says there were redaction errors, but since day one of this process, that this department has been committed to accountability and transparency. What's your response to that?
I don't think we've seen any accountability from this DOJ. Survivors have been asking to meet with the DOJ for months. We've written letters to Todd Blanche, we've written letters to Pam Bondi, and never once has the DOJ committed to meeting with at least my group of survivors that I know.
He appears to be laying blame on her successor, Acting Attorney General Todd Blanche, saying she delegated oversight of that review process to him when he was her deputy. Now, Blanche has acknowledged the release of sensitive victim information was horrible and inexcusable. Those are his words. What more do you want to see from him now that he's acting AG?
Well, that's actually kind of surprising to hear that he did say that, because when I was listening to him at a time, he was saying that the files weren't mishandled at all, which was highly confusing to survivors because we know that there was such sensitive information released. But I mean, I do hope that he investigates. I worry that Pam Bondi is going to be used as the scapegoat, and I think that Todd Blanche has just as much to answer for here. He was the reason why Ghislaine Maxwell was moved to a lower security penitentiary, and survivors have never been apprised on what happens. So we just all deserve answers. America deserves answers, and the other survivors that are not Epstein and Maxwell survivors are always looking to this case. So we just need more from our Department of Justice.
We're not going to get to see Bondi's testimony because it's not on camera, but we will get a transcript at some point. What are you looking for in that transcript once it's released?
Process. We just always want to know about the process. And just a note about the transcription. These transcribed interviews are not enough, right? We need filmed, sworn depositions that are under oath, and that is something that survivors have been asking for. We have met with, just Chairman Comer spoke earlier in the hall, and we've met with members of his team, and they've been so wonderful with us. And to hear that he does feel that the survivors have been failed time and time again was enlightening to hear. We just hope that we can now push a little bit more and start those investigations.
All right, Danielle Bensky, we appreciate your time today. So sorry for what you've gone through, but we appreciate you sharing your story with us.
Thank you so much for having me. I appreciate it.
Thank you. And we have more breaking news. 5 of the miners trapped in a flooded Laos cave are being evacuated. The head of a Thai rescue group involved in the mission says one of them is already out, and now divers are trying to bring out the other 4, while 2 miners from a different group are still missing in the cave. ABC's foreign correspondent Britt Klenitz here with more on all that. Britt, what do we know so far about this rescued miner's condition?
Well, Diane, finally some good news, a positive development. One person has been safely brought out of the cave. One of the rescuers says no information on his health condition yet. The 4 others, they do remain inside and are awaiting assessment before evacuation. But there is video of the first glimpse of that first miner who, this was a group of miners who went in looking for gold and obviously got trapped in this treacherous cave, and the search for the other 2 who remain missing will resume tomorrow. That's what we understand, but we do know that this is a very challenging network of tunnels, very narrow to get through, and so certainly a lot of people hoping that the other 4 do get out within the coming hours, and that the other 2 who remain missing are located as soon as possible, Diane.
Britt, any more on either of those 2 angles, how long it could take them to get these other 4 out, or what's happening with that search for the other 2?
Well, obviously the window is narrowing, and the next few hours are going to be critical. We did see a bit of a breakthrough today, and we do understand, as you mentioned, that the operation is underway to get the other 4 out as soon as possible and locate the other 2. The search for the other 2 will resume tomorrow, as I say. But these men are trapped in a very challenging environment, and we understand that the particular area where these four were found alive earlier this week, that they are in particularly tight conditions. So according to the local rescue group, we understand that the water levels have gone down significantly because they pumped so much of that water out, and that allowed them to start the process of bringing those 5 survivors out, as I say, who were found alive earlier this week. You remember those videos coming out, those really joyful images of relief, sheer relief that these guys had been found alive, and quite miraculously as well. But still no word on the condition, as I mentioned, of those 2 who were missing. Earlier, the rescuers said that a new plan may actually involve teaching them how to scuba dive. It's not clear whether they've implemented that plan and whether the one who has been brought out successfully scuba dived himself out. But the idea was that they could make their own way out through these very, as I say, narrow tunnels, these murky waters, in pitch black, Diane. You can't imagine how stressful that would be, and panic-inducing as well. We know that the divers, they are bringing supplies to the group of men, blankets, more water, electrolytes, all the things they'll need to survive the coming hours or days, but hopefully not days, and bring back with them, these divers, messages to their families too. The miners telling their parents, wives, children to be strong and not to worry about them. But rescue teams, they are racing against the clock here. The news so far has been good, but Mother Nature's threatening to bring monsoon rains into these already partly inundated tunnels. We know that the stranded men are over 800 feet from the cave's actual entrance, which slopes downward at a 45-degree gradient. So this is extremely complex and a very difficult mission ahead.
All right. Sure sounds that way. Britt Clennett, thank you. President Trump says he's meeting in the White House Situation Room right now on a tentative deal with Iran. Sources tell ABC News that deal would reopen the Strait of Hormuz and extend the ceasefire for 60 days while negotiators work on a permanent agreement. But it's not clear if the president will sign off on this temporary deal. Chief Foreign Correspondent Ian Panels in Jerusalem with more on that. Hi, Ian.
Yeah, Diane, we are still watching and waiting. We've been told that a deal is close. Vice President Vance is saying it's very close, but it has yet to materialize. Remember, we have been here a number of times since the original ceasefire was agreed back at the start of April. We have been told that a deal was imminent, at least an interim deal. What should we expect to see if it is agreed? Firstly, by President Trump, but also by Mujtaba Khamenei, the supreme leader of Iran. I think the primary concern, certainly for U.S. negotiators and for Iran, is what's happening in the Strait of Hormuz. Iran has been suffering economically from a blockade put in place by U.S. naval forces, and the world economy has been suffering by the restrictions imposed by Iran on the free flow of vessels through that critical strait. And of course, it's not just oil. We're seeing an impact on prices of fertilizer, which of course has a knock-on effect on the price of food, as well as aluminum prices, which have gone up something like 40 to 45% this year, reaching almost a 4-year high, partly because of the restrictions in the Strait of Hormuz, but also because Iran targeted smelting facilities in the region. A lot of aluminum is produced in the Gulf, and a lot of it has to flow through that area. So that's one part of what we should be looking at. The other part is, what is the bigger settlement here? Because the main reasons for going to war set out by the Trump administration, albeit they've been chopping and changing throughout, they haven't been elucidated very clearly, and in a lot of cases we haven't been shown evidence to support the arguments that have been made by the Trump administration. But primarily that's Iran's nuclear program, saying Iran should never have a nuclear weapon. Now, Iran's always said it doesn't want a nuclear weapon, but I think there are many skeptics out there say, well, the program it's developed would indicate that it plans otherwise. But how are you going to reach an agreement? Iran didn't make the necessary concessions before military action started. It didn't make the concessions under the pressure of the barrel of a gun. And is it really going to make those concessions now, when it feels strategically is actually just had a victory against the United States and Israel? I think the other key thorny issue is what happens in Lebanon. Israel expanding military military operations against Hezbollah, the Iranian-backed proxy group. There is a ceasefire there in place in name only. It seems to be totally ignored, certainly by Israeli defense forces, but also by Hezbollah, who fire into northern Israel, albeit at a much lower level. We're seeing Israel expand ground operations, expand bombing operations, going after Hezbollah, but Lebanese authorities are also insisting that civilians are dying as well as first responders. Meanwhile, we've got this meeting taking place in the US at the Pentagon between the Lebanese military and the US military, and the key challenge really for the Lebanese government is how do you disarm Hezbollah? It's something that they've nominally agreed to on paper before, but never done so in practice, and that is an absolute imperative for Israel, who wants to make its northern border secure. Diane?
Ian Panel, thank you. Let's bring in ABC News contributor, former senior CIA operations officer Daryl Blocker for more. Daryl, Iran's nuclear program is apparently not part of this tentative agreement. What do you make of that?
Well, that's really unfortunate. As I've said in the past, the Joint Comprehensive Plan of Action didn't guarantee that they wouldn't get a nuclear weapon, but every president from George Bush, when the Natanz nuclear facility was first revealed in 2002, including Obama, the Biden administrations, all of them have said the exact same thing, that Iran should never have a nuclear weapon. That narrative has not changed in 24 years.
Daryl, Iran says any long-term deal has to include an end to Israel's military operations in Lebanon. How big of an obstacle do you think that'll be?
Well, it's a huge obstacle. The Islamic Republic of Iran and the proxies that they've been supporting in the Palestinian armed groups and Hezbollah, of course, they've been together since at least 1982. They are inextricably linked financially, religiously, and you cannot delink them. History has proven that. They are not going to abandon one another, and they have to be considered as a part of the bigger picture.
Daryl, Secretary of State Rubio is set to meet with the Pakistani foreign minister in Washington today. What are you watching for there?
Well, what I'm watching for primarily is whether the United States is going to look at the historical role that Pakistan and China bring to the table. As many people may recall, it was Pakistan who brokered the ties between between Mao and Nixon back in the 70s. So that's really important because China has a huge factor to play in all of this, whether it's in Lebanon or whether it's in the Strait of Hormuz right now. So I think this is a very good sign.
All right, Daryl Blocker, we appreciate your time as always. Thank you. Coming up, the so-called party mom sentenced to decades in prison. Why victims called her a monster in an emotional hearing. Next.
Okay, we want to know, who are the people in your state that make such a big difference?
Come on now. We all know someone who does so much.
And we want to celebrate them with you. So scan this QR code or go to goodmorningamerica.com. Tell us about them.
We're coming to all 50 states in 50 weeks to celebrate the best of what makes America beautiful.
Welcome back to ABC News Live. First, thousands of commuters are scrambling after an Amtrak train caught fire near New York City's Penn Station. You can see the flames in this photo. The passenger who took that picture told us at around 1:30 in the morning, someone yelled there was a fire on the track, and then there was, quote, a very loud explosion. Now the fire's out, but service is suspended for all New Jersey Transit trains and Amtrak service into Manhattan. Workers are clearing the tracks and hoping to restore service sometime this afternoon. And the so-called party mom is facing decades in prison after hosting teen sex parties. Prosecutors say 52-year-old Shannon O'Connor bought her son and his friends alcohol and condoms and encouraged sex acts. Now she's facing 35 years in prison. ABC's Hannah Battah has her story.
The so-called party mom of Los Gatos, California, has been sentenced to 35 years in prison for hosting alcohol-fueled sex parties for young teens in the Silicon Valley suburb. 52-year-old Shannon O'Connor hosted the parties for her son and his friends beginning in 2020. Prosecutors say she bought them alcohol and condoms and encouraged sex acts. Most of them were just 14 and 15 years old. Among the dozens of charges she faced, felony child endangerment.
Shannon O'Connor should spend decades behind bars. Why? To protect our community, to punish her, to deter her and others from committing such horrendous crimes.
One teenager testified she became suicidal after attending a party. Parents describe O'Connor as a predator.
You don't know what a pedophile looks like. It could be a mom.
This shows that when you come together, you put these bad people away.
O'Connor claimed the teens were looking for a way to get together during the COVID pandemic lockdown, saying they were desperate for socialization. They were trying to find any outlet possible. At her sentencing, O'Connor, who claimed to be an abuse survivor herself, apologized, saying, "I have been punished and will continue to be for years to come."
She insists she had no sexual inclinations towards the victims. Her lawyer plans to appeal the sentence. She's expected to serve 27 years in prison after credit for time served. Hannah Battah, ABC News, New York.
Hannah, thank you. Coming up, the new trend of fusion weddings, the creative ways couples are bringing their cultures together as they tie the knot. Next.
Gut health support, daily nutrients, of course, and billions of live probiotics.